Welcome to Sara Gonzales Unfiltered. Happy Monday. How was your weekend? Mine got a little crazy, but we'll get into that later on in the show. First, I want to welcome to the program his first time on Sara Gonzales Unfiltered, Congressman Brandon Gill. He is, of course, Texas's 26th district, and just like to brag a little bit, my personal congressman. I'm very happy that you're on the program. Welcome.
Sarah, thanks for having me.
I would imagine that your first session, freshman congressman, has been a little nuts, been a little crazy, like hit the ground running, drinking from a fire hose, lot to get done, never a dull moment.
It has been. We've got a lot of work to do. We've been setting up district offices, D.C. offices, but I can tell you what's been amazing is watching President Trump come in over the past 10 or 12 days and just hit the ground running. It's been fantastic. I was in the Capitol for the inauguration. You look up and you can see the Capitol dome. You see American history all around you. And then you see President Trump, and right behind him, within only a few feet, is Joe Biden. And the entire time, President Trump just ripping on him, just ripping his administration to shreds. And Joe Biden had no idea what was going on, of course.
Yeah.
But that's, President Trump has executed on everything he said he was going to do. And it's been incredible.
Yeah, it really has been tremendous to watch. So one of those. So let's get to one of those, which is, of course, the tariffs. Now, I know his enemies over there in the swamp were like, but what about you just wait and watch the price of avocados go up, and everyone, you saw Chuck Schumer over there holding up a Corona. He was like, uh-oh, this is getting more expensive. And you're like, all right, calm down, guys. And what you saw, of course, was President Trump, who was set 25% tariff on Mexican imports on Saturday, I believe. And already, immediately, in response, the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, already agreed to send 10,000 National Guard troops to close or at least help enforce the border on the Mexican side and stop the massive drug inflow in exchange for a 1-month pause in the tariffs. So Donald Trump he posted on Truth Social that these soldiers would be, it's very, very long. So let me just read you some of these. These soldiers will be specifically designed to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. Just like that, Congressman.
It's been amazing. You're right. The left likes to talk about the cost of tariffs. The price of avocados are going to go up. The price of flowers are going to go up. Well, my country's sovereignty is worth more than cheap flowers and cheap avocados.
Yeah.
The reality is that over the past 4 years, Joe Biden has allowed the Mexican government to help facilitate over 10 million people coming into our country. That includes we now have around 425,000 illegal aliens in our country who are guilty of crimes. That includes about 14,000 murderers, around 16,000 people who have been guilty of various degrees of sexual assault. We've had over 21,000 pounds of fentanyl pour across our border. That's enough fentanyl to kill, I believe, almost 5 billion people. I mean, this is a serious, serious national crisis. Finally, President Trump is in the White House and he's taking it seriously. But the Mexican government needs to remember that 1/3 of their economy is dependent upon U.S. imports from Mexico. Mm-hmm. We have the most powerful economy in the world, and they can no longer treat us the way they have under the Joe Biden administration. We finally have a president in the White House who's willing to flex our economic muscle to save our citizens from fentanyl and from murderers and rapists who are coming across our border. And it's refreshing.
It really is. Yeah. And it's like, I'll take a little bit higher cost of avocado toast.
Right. Right.
This is kind of a no-brainer here when it comes to the safety and security of American people. So, you mentioned Mexico, the exports and U.S. imports. It was interesting to I get in conversations with people as I'm just going around and, someone mentioned, well, don't vacation in Mexico anymore. Well, don't go eat tacos. And it's like, guys, I actually think the Mexican president does not want that. Right. The Mexican president wants us very much to go vacation in Mexico because their entire economy would crash if it wasn't for their tourism industry and Americans going to go vacation there. So it benefits everyone. This should be a win-win. Mexico can clean up their own, streets, can clean up all the fentanyl that's passing through their country, can clean up the fact that there is a human trafficking crisis happening at the border. And in some cases, these are Mexican women and children being raped along the way at these rape trees, being trafficked into our country. This is a win-win if you're looking at this objectively.
That's exactly right. You hear a lot of pushback on tariffs, and they say tariffs are only a tax on American citizens. Then why are other countries instituting retaliatory tariffs against the United States? This should be a partnership with Mexico. They're also seeing millions of people pouring through their country to come to the United States. This is a problem for them as well. But Mexico is largely a failed narco-terrorist state. And whenever you have a failed narco-terrorist state that borders the United States, they need to understand who they're talking to. And whenever we want them to stop the flow of migrants coming into our country, they better listen to us.
Yeah. So to that point, Congressman, we just got word today, this afternoon, right after, of course, President Trump had this phone call with the Mexican president, that Mexican authorities arrested El Ricky, who was a regional leader of one of the cartels. So there is El Ricky going to El Jail is what that is. So again, the W across the board, we're going to take as many W's as we can, especially with President Trump's implementation of all of these executive orders. Turns out we have borders again. And on that note, Congressman, I know that you have actually introduced your first bill in this session, the Remain in Mexico Act. And it's really simple. It is, tell me if I have this right, it's just codifying what President Trump has said in his executive order, which is, hey, if you want to be an asylum seeker, you got to return to Mexico to wait for your turn. You don't just get to stay here until your turn is up.
That's exactly what it is. And broadly speaking, I think that codifying President Trump's executive orders into law to make them permanent should be Congress's top priority. We've seen executive orders ranging from border security to energy policy to getting rid of DEI to everything in between. All the things that President Trump ran on, he's actually doing. It's incredible. It's refreshing to see a president make promises and fulfill them as quickly as President Trump has. But you saw what happened during Joe Biden's administration. We had a secure border under the first Trump administration. Joe Biden gets in and he rescinds every single major border protection policy President Trump had put on the books. We can't let that happen again. We can't let another Democrat, a future Democrat president, unleash the kind of hell on our country that Joe Biden did. So all this bill does is it takes President Trump's 2019 migrant protection protocols, the Remain in Mexico policy, and makes it permanent and codifies it into law. I think that this is the first step for border security. We've got a whole lot else that needs to follow this, but this is a good place to start. It was incredibly effective. After this policy was instituted, we saw border crossings drop by 70%. So this is something that needs to happen now. It needs to happen fast, but it's only step one. But to your point, we have got to provide President Trump with the legislative backup that he needs. We've got to make sure that he's got funding to build the border wall, that he's got funding for deportation beds and ICE agents and DHS and everything else. And then we've got to make this permanent.
Yeah. How much support do you have in Congress for this?
We've got over 100 co-sponsors. That includes 2 Democrats, by the way. So even the Democrats can see that the American people want border security, that they're sick of their neighborhoods being overrun by gangbangers and by fentanyl.
Yeah.
So we have the support to do it. I think that we can get this passed this year.